This is the story of a company that went bankrupt twice in 18 months, and how, according to the people it owed money to, it had actually been insolvent for 4 years before anyone said the word out loud. Payless ShoeSource was the biggest family shoe store in America. 4,400 stores in 30 countries, 22,000 employees. The place half the country got their back-to-school sneakers. Today we're going to walk through the machine that hollowed it out, a maneuver so efficient it deserves its own file in this series, because it's the purest version of the playbook we've been tracing since File 1. It's called the dividend recapitalization, and once you understand it, you'll understand why some companies don't really go bankrupt. They arrive bankrupt, and it just takes a few years for the paperwork to catch up. This is the Liquidation Files. Open the folder. First, what Payless was. Founded in Topeka, Kansas in 1956 with a then radical idea, self-service shoes. No salesman measuring your foot, no backroom, just racks of affordable shoes you grabbed yourself in a store that put "pay less" right in the name. It worked for half a century. Payless became the largest specialty family footwear retailer in the Western Hemisphere, the default shoe store of American childhood. Birthday sneakers, Easter shoes, the light-up ones your mom said were too expensive anywhere else. Now, the deal. In 2012, Payless's parent company, Collective Brands, was broken up and sold for about $1.3 billion. The breakup itself tells you what the buyers valued. Wolverine Worldwide, an actual shoe company, took the crown jewel brands like Sperry, Keds, and Saucony. And the stores themselves, the Payless chain, went to 2 private equity firms, Golden Gate Capital, a name you'll remember from our Red Lobster file, and Bloom Capital. A leveraged buyout, meaning, as always, the borrowed money used to buy Payless became Payless's own debt to repay. If this were Red Lobster or Toys R Us, the story would now take a few years to develop. Payless's story didn't wait. According to the official committee of Payless's creditors, in a filing made later in bankruptcy court, here is what happened next. In February 2013, just over 4 months after the buyout closed, the new owners caused Payless to borrow an additional $225 million, not to renovate stores, not to build e-commerce. According to the filing, all of the proceeds from that borrowing were paid out to the sponsor group as special dividends, with another $15 million of the company's own cash spent on fees to close the transaction. 4 months in, borrow $225 million in the company's name, hand the entire amount to the owners, bill the company $15 million for the paperwork. And the filing adds a detail that turns the maneuver into something almost artistic. At least one member of the sponsor group was also a lender in that 2013 transaction. Read that flow slowly. The owner has the company borrow money, partly from the owner, pays the loan proceeds to the owner as a dividend, and then collects interest from the company on the loan that funded the owner's own payout. Every arrow in the diagram points the same direction, and the company sits in the middle, poorer at every step. This maneuver has a name: the dividend recapitalization. Recapitalization is the polite word for restructuring what a company owes. Dividend is where the new borrowing goes. It's the third tool in the extraction kit we've been assembling on this channel. Red Lobster's owners took the value out through real estate. Toys R Us's owners took it through fees. A dividend recap doesn't bother with buildings or advisory agreements. It simply has the company borrow money and hands the cash straight up the chain. It's the extraction playbook with the pretense removed. And then, in March 2014, according to the same court record, they did it again. A second dividend recapitalization, a year after the first. Reporting at the time put the dividends from the 2 transactions at roughly $350 million. The creditors committee alleged that in total, more than $400 million had been siphoned out of Payless. Against a purchase price of $1.3 billion, the owners had, per the creditors, pulled out roughly a third of the deal's value in cash in 2 years from a shoe chain whose customers were counting quarters. Now for the finding that gives this file its title. When Payless finally filed for bankruptcy in April 2017, the creditors committee hired a valuation expert, Dr. Israel Shaked, who produced a 160-page report. Its conclusion, as summarized in the committee's own court filing, was this. Immediately following the February 2013 dividend recap, Payless's equity value was negative, the company was insolvent. After the 2014 recap, more insolvent still. And it remained insolvent per the report at all times afterward. Think about what that means. By this analysis, Payless spent 4 years as a dead company that hadn't stopped moving, 22,000 people going to work every day inside a corpse, from February 2013 until the court filing made it official in 2017. The bankruptcy wasn't an event. It was a diagnosis, delivered 4 years late. The creditors, mostly the landlords and shoe vendors Payless owed, took those findings and alleged fraudulent transfers, illegal dividends, and breach of fiduciary duty. The owners denied wrongdoing. And then, in the pattern you now know from our Sears file, the whole thing resolved the quiet way, a settlement reported at $25 million, with the sponsors admitting no wrongdoing of any kind. $25 million returned, against more than $400 million alleged taken. No trial, no ruling, no verdict, just a number small enough to make the questions stop. Payless limped out of that first bankruptcy in August 2017, having closed hundreds of stores, with landlords cutting rents by 30 to 50% just to keep it breathing, and about $435 million in debt shed. It wasn't enough because the years the debt had eaten couldn't be refunded. The stores were dated, the e-commerce barely existed. The customers had drifted to Walmart, Target, and online. Everything a decade of reinvestment might have fixed was still broken, because the money that would have fixed it had left in 2013 and 2014 in the back of a dividend. 18 months later, in February 2019, Payless filed for bankruptcy a second time. This time, there was no restructuring plan, no rescue, no buyer, despite months of searching. All of its roughly 2,300 remaining stores in the United States and Puerto Rico closed, and by store count, it was the largest retail liquidation in American history. 16,000 more people lost their jobs. The chain that put "Pay Less" in its name ended as the biggest going-out-of-business sale the country had ever seen. One footnote, because the brand itself refuses to stay buried, the Latin American operations survived, and the Payless name was later relaunched under new ownership. The label lives. The 4,400 stores, the 22,000 jobs, the half-century institution, that is what liquidated. So let's close the file with the pattern, because Payless completes a set. 4 autopsies on this channel now, 4 different instruments, 1 identical wound. Red Lobster, the real estate, sold out from under it. Toys R Us, the buyout debt, bolted onto it. Sears, the same man on both sides of every deal. Payless, the dividend recap, borrow in the company's name. Pay the owners in cash, do it again, and let the paperwork catch up years later. Different tools. Same direction of travel. The money always moves from the company to the owners, and the risk always moves from the owners to the company, to the workers, the landlords, the vendors, and eventually the bankruptcy court. The next time you hear that a beloved chain couldn't compete anymore, check the dates. Payless didn't fail in 2017 or in 2019. According to the experts its own creditors hired, it failed in February 2013, 4 months after its new owners arrived, and spent the rest of its life finding out. If you want more files like this one, the companies you grew up with, and the deals that quietly hollowed them out, that's what we do here at the Liquidation Files. The next file is already open. I'll see you in that.